So in this video, I want to talk through PeerWise, an amazing platform for students to actually write their own questions, to provide feedback for the questions they write, and also, more importantly, to do the questions other students have written, to give feedback on those questions, and also to comment and collaborate on those questions. And so the main PeerWise screen looks a bit like this. I'll show you how to actually set up PeerWise in a minute, but let me just talk through the why of PeerWise. And so the PeerWise, we set it up every semester for a particular unit of study. And so you can see, for example, here's the 2012, 13, and also 2014 versions of the course. And let me just show you a few of the examples of the things that the students can actually write. It's actually quite amazing what they come up with. So over here is a particular example. And what you see here is that the student has essentially taken a concept and they've wrapped a question around this concept quite nicely. They've given a correct answer and they've also given an explanation about why this answer is the way it is. Now, if you scroll further down the screen, what you'll see is that a bunch of students have actually come in and commented on this question, and that the author has come in and commented as well. And so you see a little bit of banter between the students, and a bit of explanation, and also just a bit of encouragement as well. That's best question by 5-10 points. It's a really nice thing for the students to see. So here's an example of another student question, this time from a different topic. And you can see here, this particular question is confusing some of the students a bit. In this particular column, what we see is the first answer. So this is when the student initially clicks on an answer before they get a chance to think about it and say, well, your answer isn't quite right. Maybe have a try again and think about the question again. And so you can see by the first answer statistics that this question is fairly well split between A, C, and also E. But once the system tells the students, go back and think about it, the students predominantly answer E, which is the correct answer over here. You can see again, this student has provided feedback for their question. And also, if we scroll further down, you can see the students again are commenting on each other's questions, and they're talking about aspects of the question, like definition of particular words, and also whether or not they think the question is right or not right on the feedback as well. And so again, here another question. This one is a bit less confusing for the students. What we actually find is that if you, as an instructor, if you go through and find these questions which the students initially find quite confusing, and you use them in examinations, these student-written questions tend to be actually the best questions, the best differentiating questions in examination, because the students have this really great ability to be able to pick up on their misconceptions about what they know and what they don't know. And again, if you scroll down on this question, what you can see is the feedback that students have provided, and also all the comments that people have provided based on this question. So here we have the feedback for a different question, and in this feedback what you can see is the students are thinking at a very deep conceptual level about this particular topic. They're going backwards and forwards, trying to ask each other different questions, trying to think about the deeper aspects of this question. So students can actually get very creative, very in-depth about the way that they write their questions. And for example, here is a genetics question written by a student, and you can see here that again the students are having trouble with this particular question, and this is quite powerful because the student has actually provided here a massive explanation of exactly what is going on. And just to have the students be able to look at a question in this depth and see their classmates doing this, it's very encouraging, I think. Here's a nice question here about Pokemon. This particular student has produced basically, or taken this image from the internet about the Pokemon phylogeny, and has applied his knowledge of phylogeny and evolution and applied it to this particular question and made up a question based around this idea. And here's just another example of a student question, and in this particular question the student has actually gone into quite a bit of conceptual depth about this particular biochemical reaction. And what you can see is that the student has written quite good feedback, and they've actually needed to apply their fundamental content knowledge in a very deep conceptual method. I reckon if you put this particular question, especially considering how the first answers are fairly variable, in an actual exam, this would be a fairly powerful question. Okay, so let's go through how to actually set up a PeerWise course and put it into your unit of study. Here we're at the PeerWise homepage, and so we'll just select our institution from this box here. And then we'll have to log in, and so we'll log in. If you don't have an account, obviously you can create an account for yourself. This is obviously separate to any institutional logins, but that's okay. Students are quite used to logging into different systems, so this separate login isn't an issue for them. So if you log in, what you see is your current courses, and so what I'll do here is I'll create a new course down here. And the course name I could create would be Introductory Biology Semester 1 2015, for example. And then I can preview this new course. Okay, so this is the course name over here, and if you want to confirm it, then let's click Create this course. And what you see here is now this is a pending course. So we need to actually upload student identifiers to activate this course, and so we'll click on this button over here. And then here you essentially put in all the student identifiers, and so these could be, for example, UniKeys, which the students log in with, or SIDs, or some unique identifier that each student has. And so once you've entered a bunch of the student identifiers, and again you can probably paste this from a spreadsheet or a CSV that you download from Central Systems, you can change this prompt over here. And so, for example, please enter your UniKey for this course. Please enter your UniKey, and then let's update this prompt. Okay, and now what we've done is we've essentially added 3 student identifiers who are allowed to actually access and link this course with their own PeerWise account. Now, in order to allow students to link into it, let's go over here to View Instructions for Students. And you can copy and paste and edit, essentially, this text over here. The important parts of this text are that they need to access this site, and they need to enter this course ID, and they also need to enter the UniKey once they get to this particular site. Okay, so back at the main menu of PeerWise, what we can see is our course is already up here, and we have 0 out of 3 students who have successfully logged on to the system. What is useful to do here is to go into the administration tab and start to edit some course tags. And so these are basically little tags that the students can use to basically meta tag particular questions based on the topic. And so, for example, let's say there's a topic called cells, there's a topic called genetics, a topic called ecology, and things like this. And so based on these, the students either can create their own tags down here if you allow it, or if you don't allow it, then they have to select one of these tags in order to tag each question that they make. And the benefit of doing this is that it makes it much easier to search the repository of questions that the students have generated for you and also for the students. Okay, so if you need to add extra students to the course, you can come over here to the Manage Access link, and over here what you can do is you can edit either the administrator identifiers, and so if you have staff who need to log in, you can add their PeerWise identifiers to this section, or if you have more students that you need to access the site, you can add their identifiers into this area as well. What I find really useful as well is if you populate PeerWise with a few staff-generated questions. This just gets the ball rolling with the students. You don't need to populate with too many, maybe 5 questions is typically sufficient to get the students knowing how to interact with the system, what a question looks like, and how they can write their own questions as well. So from here, let's go into our course. And then from this view, you can actually write your own questions. So these are your own questions, and so what we can do, we can view our questions, and since we have none currently, let's create a new questions. And so, for example, here we have the editor, and we can put a few options in. So, okay, and then we can select the correct answer. And down here we can provide a bit of explanation. The students will essentially see this interface when they try to input, when they come to input their own questions as well. And so, okay, and we can tag this as particular topic or topics, and we can also create a topic as well if this has been enabled in your admin interface. Okay, so let's see a preview of this question down here. And we can see this is basically the view that looks very familiar to us now. The question, they're followed by the alternatives, followed by the explanation down here. So if we're happy with this, we can save the question or go back and make changes. Okay, and so what we can do now that the question exists is back in the course, we can view the question that we've generated, and we can click this particular button to actually view this question. And so because this is a question that we have created ourselves, we can't actually attempt the question, but we can view the stats based on each question. So the really neat thing about PeerWise as well is that it's gamified, and so they can earn these badges based on how many questions they answer, how many questions they answer right in a row, how many of their questions that people like, and things like this. And so basically here, come and view the badges, and these are all the lists of badges that the students can collect in a particular course. And so you often find students trying to compete for these badges because it's cool to have these particular achievements. Okay, so now that your course is basically set up in terms of the PeerWise interface, it's time to actually get your students to enroll themselves into your PeerWise course. And so previously you would have copied and pasted this set of instructions which tells the students which URL to access, which course code or course ID to enter, and how to actually access using the uni key. And the next thing to do is actually to put this into your learning management system. So for example, over here we have our Blackboard site. If we scroll down to revision resources, which is where PeerWise lives for us, we can see that there is a link over here to PeerWise, a bit of an explanation of what PeerWise is about, and also information about logging into this course. So this was a different course, and therefore there's a different course ID and slightly different instructions over here. And so it's important to give your students a bit of an intro, heads up to PeerWise, a bit of information in this link, for example, to tell them how to access it. In lectures or in pracs, you may want to give your students hints and tips on how to actually write proper multiple choice questions, like come up with a topic and 5 facts about it and turn 1 fact incorrect or turn 4 facts incorrect. Just hints and tips on how to actually build their multiple choice questions. If they get stuck, there's also documentation on the PeerWise website that they can look at in order to learn how to create and navigate the site as well. It's also important to keep selling PeerWise to the students. So for example, posting things on announcements, announcing this in lectures, also using their questions inside exams and really telling them that you will be using the best questions in exams is also a very powerful motivator. So from an instructor's point of view, the administration area is your friend. What I've found useful here is to actually display a summary of participation, and so here you can see a big table of your students. Obviously this table is empty currently because this course only has myself inside it, but if you have lots of students, you can see how many questions they've answered, how many comments they've answered, their various contributions as well. It's a really nice way to gauge engagement quickly. You can also view the individual questions your students have created, so for example via this click, and you can sort them in terms of most commented, most responded. Students can go in also and rate questions, and so you can see which ones have been rated highly, which have been rated poorly. Typically the highly rated questions are really good to actually use in the examinations as well. What's also really powerful as an instructor to use PeerWise is the few questions that you load up yourself onto PeerWise for the students to use. It's quite a nice arena to actually test your questions out. So for example, here's a question that I've written. And this particular question, you can see that a bunch of students have answered this, and some of them are getting stuck on E, for example, even though the correct answer is actually B. And so just using PeerWise as a formative assessment tool is quite useful to tell you about how the students are thinking as well. Now, I wouldn't recommend using PeerWise primarily as an instructor-sourced tool, a place where instructors write questions and students just answer questions. It is really important to get the students to write the questions themselves, hence why the name is called PeerWise, because this peer-to-peer interaction is actually really powerful for the students' learning. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of how I implement PeerWise into my course. If you ever get stuck and you want to find out more, then from the PeerWise homepage you can click this link, and there's a few guidance videos of how to create questions, how to link up the things or how to set up the course, and also some screencasts just like the one you're watching now about how to write, edit, change, comment on, sort and delete and add and all those kind of things to the questions that are on PeerWise.